and that made me extremely happy. Before I let Isidoro in, Cantor Isidoro Abramovich, to do the service and light the candle, I want to just say that we're very happy for this cooperation with the Synagogue of Norrköping and the Synagoge Pestalozzistrasse in Berlin. And I thank Morton Narrowe, Isidoro Abramovich, Solveig Freudenthal, Klas Roth, and Ingvild Pizarro, who are going to be part of this program. So we're going to move on to the candle lighting and to the service. And I would like to introduce Isidoro Abramovich, Cantor Isidoro Abramovich. We all know him from Stockholm. He will tell us a bit about his congregation, his synagogue, and we'll move on to the service. Please feel free to light your candles together with Isidoro. I'm going to do that.
Chanuka Sameach. Good evening, everybody. It's so nice to see so many of you and so many well-known faces. I am very happy to share this moment with you, and I thank Lizzie and, of course, Yiddish Kultur for this invitation. While I will be speaking to you, if you didn't prepare your candles, it's a very good moment to do it, because we will, in 1 minute or 2 minutes, we will be lighting them. So just feel free to listen and to prepare all what you need. We light this evening 6 candles plus the shamash. And yes, so you know, when I left Stockholm, I moved to Berlin, where I'm working, and I'm working at the Pestalozzistrasse synagogue. It's a synagogue that was built in 1912, and miraculously was not destroyed by the Nazis completely. It was burned, but they called the authorities to just act rapidly, because they were afraid that if it burns completely, the neighborhood and the buildings that were adjacent to the synagogue will burn also. So that was what saved the synagogue to burn completely and get destroyed. And it was renewed in 1946. And since 1947, there are services continuously in this synagogue, and it's the only synagogue that keeps almost complete the tradition of Louis Lewandowski. You know, all of you know Louis Lewandowski, who introduced the reform, the organ and the mixed choir in a way as a full service as it wasn't before. Although we had, of course, many other musicians before Lewandowski, but he mastered it in a beautiful way. And most of the service we keep nowadays in the Pestalozzistrasse synagogue. So, and now, without any other delay, I would like to invite you to light the candles together. Yes? Should we proceed with it?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So first of all, we light the shamash. And while we have lit the shamash, we will start doing the brachot. You know that it is different from Shabbat. On Shabbat, we light the candles and we say the bracha. But here, because it's not Shabbat and we can't do melacha, we light the candles after the bracha. Like almost everything what we do in Judaism, we say a bracha before we do the actual activity. So, and we light always the new candle and then go back to the first one. Okay, so we start together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר קידשנו במצוותיו, וציוונו להדליק נר של חנוכה. And we say Amen. And the second bracha, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. And we say again, Amen. Now while we're singing הנרות הללו, you can light your candles. הנרות הללו שאנו מדליקים, הנרות הללו שאנו מדליקים, על הניסים ועל הנפלאות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו, שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם, בימים ההם, בימים ההם בזמן הזה. מעוז צור ישועתי, לך נאה נשבח, תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נדבר, ותפעיל מטבע, מצד המנבא, אז אגמור בשיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח, אז אגמור בשיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח. חנוכה שמח.
Thank you, Isidoro. Thank you very much. Isidoro will be back soon again, but now I'm very happy to introduce Rabbi Morton Narrowe, who will have a discussion together with Klas Roth. Klas is a professor of education at Stockholm University, and they will speak about the meaning of Chanukah and the tradition of the celebration of Chanukah. Please, Morton and Klas.
Thank you very much, Lizzie. I'm happy to be a part of this all event, and I would like to say, as Isidoro said, Chanukah Sameach to all of us that participate tonight. It's a large number of people here engaging in all this. It's very happy to be a part of this. So when Rabbi Morton Narrowe and I talked, we talked about saying something about the origin and some interpretations of Chanukah and light and so on. And I would first now like to introduce Rabbi Morton Narrowe to talk about the origin of Chanukah. So please, Morton.
Yeah, it's true. Chanukah is the celebration of a military victory. But most people don't know that this was not the end of the war. The war between the Syrian Greeks and Judeans, because the people, our people at the time, were the citizens of Judea, and they were called Yehudim, where the name comes from. This continued into the year 160. And during this time, 4 of the 5 Maccabee brothers were killed in a battle of one sort or another. Jonathan, for example, was killed in an ambush. Eliezer attacked the tank of the time. He crept under an elephant, which was the major weapon of this group attacking the Judeans, killed it from the bottom, and the animal fell upon him. In any event, Simon survived. He became king and high priest, the first time these two positions were ever united. But nevertheless, most of this is history, and only historians know about it. We usually stop after the conquest of Jerusalem, the Maccabees coming into the temple, consecrating the Beit HaMikdash, consecrating the temple, and consecrating the Mizbeach, the altar. There was also the question of the Mizbeach inside the temple. And in fact, more important than the altar inside the temple, the menorah, the only important menorah, was actually in the building. I emphasize this because most people don't know that no one except a priest was permitted to enter into the temple itself. So for the people, the altar in the courtyard was the important thing. And the altar in the courtyard was actually the most difficult for the Maccabees to solve. What do? You're victorious. You come and you enter into the temple compound. And there before you is the altar. The stones were consecrated when the building was reestablished under the times of the prophets Zechariah and Haggai. But these stones have been polluted. The assimilationists had sacrificed pigs and other animals. They had brought in a statue of Zeus. What do you do with this? I don't know. I'm sure you don't know. And you know what? They didn't know either. So they took all of the stones, tore down the altar, and they placed it, according to the book of the Maccabees, on some spot on the Temple Mountain. And they put it there, awaiting the return of the prophet Elijah or some new prophet who would come and tell them what to do. So actually, somewhere on the Temple Mountain may be the stones of the original altar. They built a new one with the unhewed stones, not using iron, a symbol of war, and they consecrated it. But what? We don't remember that. We mention it in the song Ma'osur, Zegmor Bashir Mizmor Chanukah Tamizbeach. I will conclude with a song of hymns to the dedication of the temple. What was important? They told the story of the lights in the menorah, of the oil that was supposed to last for one day, but it lasted 8 days. And the candles were lit. And the candles became the symbol of Chanukah. And the candles became the source of a special light. And Klas, I would like to ask you, when I mention these lights that were in the temple, what do you think of? What do these lights mean to you? How do you see it? Is it something concrete, something abstract, something ideal? I ask you, please respond.
Well, thank you, Morton, and thank you also for the introduction to the origin of Chanukah. When I think about Chanukah and the 8 lights that we light one each day for 8 days, well, obviously the obvious one is to think about the more physical one, and that actually the light we carry, that we bring about each and every day. But I'm also thinking about the whole situation that surrounded the Jewish people during the Syrian-Greek period. And for me, I think about 3 things. One of them has to do with the freedom from the oppression, from the Syrian-Greek people that didn't make it possible for the Jewish people to celebrate their holidays and to celebrate, yes, to be or to become a Jew during that time. I also think about the things that has to do with the remembrance of lighting these candles, of freedom to be a Jew, from the limitations, the hindrances that took place at that particular time. So lighting the candles for me is a remembrance of the limitations, from the hindrances from being a Jew, but also the value and importance of thinking about to live to celebrate the Jewish holidays and to be a Jew. That's one thing I'm thinking about, but I'm also thinking about what it means to be living as a Jew today in the circumstances that all of us who are now here on Zoom, for example, in all the places in which we live, and all other Jews who lives around on this planet. What does it mean to be free from the circumstances that possibly makes it possible, or rather limits the possibility to live a Jewish life? And I'm also thinking about what it means for each and every one of us to be free to live a Jewish life during the circumstances in which we are today. So when I light the candles, I'm thinking about the historical circumstances, but I also think about the present circumstances under which you and I and many of others lives today, and the freedom we have, the possible freedom we have to celebrate and to become and to be a Jewish. And the second thing I'm thinking about is that when we engage in being Jewish, I think there is this ongoing conversation, which I think that we want to introduce, the theme today, among Jewish people. What does it mean to be a Jew today? And I think that suggests at least two things. One thing is that we lose our ways occasionally, yes, partly because of the circumstances in which we live, but partly because also we lose our way to live a Jewish life in the present circumstances in which we are. So I think that finding one's way again and lighting the candles for me is also remembrance of finding one's way again in the present circumstances in which we live today, wherever we live and wherever we want to be Jew, live as a Jewish people. So that is the two things I think about. And the third one is the ongoing and valuable conversation among Jews and other people, what it means and suggests, and the freedom to continue to engage in this conversation of living a Jewish life today. So lighting the candles and bringing the light into life is a remembrance partly on the freedom, but also partly because it has to do with finding one's way again continuously and effortlessly today in our times in which we live. So these are the things I'm thinking about. But going back to you, Morton, what do you think about when it comes to this lighting the candles, the Chanukah and the celebration and so on? So please go ahead.
Oh, what rich symbolism and ideas. But I go in a different direction. For me, the disagreement between the Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, the disciples of Shammai and the disciples of the Rabbi Hillel, means a great deal. These two people taught that the halacha, the way that we should celebrate Chanukah by lighting lights, should be opposite. In other words, Beit Shammai said, you holech upochet. You go and you diminish daily, by which he meant that on the first night you light 8 candles, the second night 7, the third night 6, and down until the final night 1 candle. And why? Keneged hayamim hanichnasim, literally because of the days remaining. For me, this means that for them, they had a container of oil and there was a certain amount in, and each day they used a little bit and it became less oil in until on the final night, there was only enough for one time. For me, that's not a very important idea. Beit Hillel proposes the halachic practice, which is ours today. Holech umosif, you add. They said, on the first night, you light 1 candle, second night, 2 candles, the third night, 3 candles. Tonight we light 6. Tomorrow 7. On the final day, we will light 8. And then when asked, why do you do this? First came also a relatively simple and unimportant answer. Kineged hayamim hayotzeim. It's representing the days that have passed. Very simplistic. But the second reply is a message that we should take to heart. In fact, it's one of the most important principles of my being Jewish, because Beit Hillel said, Ma'alin b'kedusha velo moridin. You add in holiness, you do not subtract. Whatever you do, go forward, do more, start at a low point and increase. Increase much of what you're doing that is worthwhile. You know, let me take a little sidestep and then tie it together. If you read the story of creation, you'll see that the world was chaotic. There was a strong wind, a storm. God's wind was blowing over the darkness. And what was the first thing that God said? He said, Yehi or, let there be light. Vayehi or, and there was light. There was light. But if you continue your reading, you'll find that on the 4th day, God created the sun and the moon and the stars, the sources of light, up until the modern time when we created electricity. So what was the light that existed for the days before the sun and the moon? That was the divine force. That was the symbol of enlightenment, the symbol of learning more, the symbol of being better, the symbol of more knowledge. You know, it's not a little thing that quite frequently the Nobel Prizes are distributed on Chanukah. It's always on the 10th of December, and not infrequently, the 10th of December is one of the nights of Chanukah. It's a symbol of the light that goes forth, this light that makes more. This is what Hillel is talking about. This is what we're doing. This is what Chanukah means. Go forth, make more light, make the world better with more knowledge, and hopefully have many discussions like that which Klas and I have had today. For one of the things about being Jewish is that we talk to each other, we debate each other, and we look to see how we can enlighten each other and the world.
Right, so thank you, Morton, for this lovely conversation. I'm very happy to have had it with you, so thank you once again.
So Isidora? I think that...
Thank you, Morton. Thank you, Klas. It's very interesting to listen to both of you. And we are talking about light and the darkness. And the next song, it's called Yemei Chanukah. And you are welcome to join, even if you have your microphones off, which is, of course, a good idea. But you can join me and sing together. This Chanukah, Yemei Chanukah, these Chanukah days, says the text, are days where you light the candles as our hearts fill with joy. Let us remember the victories of the Maccabees. Let us eat sufganiot. Let us spin our sevivonim and remember our enemies who were vanquished and Jerusalem renewed. So, if you know, just sing along. Baruch Hoshech legarish beyadeinu olahish kol אחד הוא אור קטן, וכולנו אור איתן, צורה חושך על השחור, צורה מפני האור, צורה חושך על השחור, צורה מפני האור. באנו חושך לגרש, בידינו ובאש, כל אחד הוא אור קטן, ואותנו אור איתן, צורה חושך על השחור, צורה מפני האור, צורה חושך על השחור, צורה מפני האור. And now, that was actually Banu Choshech Legaresh, and now we will sing Yemei Chanukah that I spoke to you. So join me also to sing this beautiful Chanukah song. ימי החנוכה, חנוכת מקדשנו, גילו ושמחה ממלאים את ליבנו, לילה ויום צבעוננו ניסוף, סוף גניות על מאמרו, הרינו, הדליקו, ימי חנוכה רבים. על הניסים ועל הנפלאות אשר סוללו המכבים, על הניסים ועל הנפלאות אשר חוללו המכבים. ימי החנוכה, חנוכת מקדשנו, בגילו ושמחה ממלאים את ליבנו, לילה ויום סביבוננו יסוף, סוף גניות אחר ורבו, העירו, הדליקו, פירות חנוכה רבים, על הניסים ועל הנפלאות, אשר חוללו המכבים, על הניסים ועל הנפלאות אשר חוללו מכבים.
Al hanisim v'al haniflaot, about the miracles and the wonders. And when we were children, we were taught in Hebrew school that the dreidel stood for the 4 words, Nes gadol haya sham, a great miracle happened there. A little bit later, when the state of Israel was established, actually even before the state of Israel was established, in the end of the 40s, I remember it even in the 30s, that there was an attempt to change Nes Gadol Haya Sham into Nes Gadol Haya Po. A great miracle happened here. Well, I'm very glad that they didn't keep that and that we put the shin back into it, because this made the dreidel much more complete and much closer to its origin. I remember very well, at home, we had a whole bunch of nuts. I think there were hazelnuts of some sort. And the only purpose for them in Chanukah was to play dreidel with them. We used them, we distributed to each child, to my cousins and to myself, about 10 nuts. And then we gave each of the children these nuts, and then we said, okay, put 2 in the middle. And then we played with the dreidel and we let it go around. And then we decided that somebody got these points and somebody got those points. And they took the nuts, so they gave them back. It was only later that I discovered, because of Yiddish-speaking grandmother, that this Nun, Gimel, Hey, Shin had nothing whatsoever to do with the miracle of Chanukah, but it was actually one of the first what we call it, gambling games from the Middle Ages. And you have to remember, in Eastern Europe, my family came from Moldava, from Bessarabia at the Black Sea, a real dark, dark area. People couldn't read and write. Either they were great scholars or life was extremely hard. And Chanukah was not really much of a holiday. People would not give gifts. They got Chanukah geld. And Chanukah geld, Chanukah money, they were very, very, what are they? It wasn't rubles. It was the smallest coin. In Sweden, we would say it's an öre, a penny. But they used them to play the game of dreidel. And how do you play it? Well, the first letter is nun. Nun is nes. Nun is nichts. Nothing. Gornished. If you get a nun, you missed your turn, and forward you went. Gimel. Gadol? Gimel was ganz. You take the entire pot. The person who gets a gimel can be glicklich. He can be very happy. He can take the money and what was it that the movie was called? Take the money and run. But usually you continue the game. He would take the pot and then everybody would again put two more in. If you happen to get a hey, you didn't get a haya that it was, but you got halb, half of the pot. So, nes, gadol, haya, unfortunately, shin is left. And if you look carefully at shin, even the word, shin comes from shein, the Hebrew word for teeth. They bite. Shin, shtel. Put the money in. You had to match all the nuts that were in the pot. You had to play again. And the dreidel always had these four sides, these four letters, but it had different forms. Here's one that reminded of the state of Israel. Here's one that looks like, something like a top. And here is one with another with a red one. But whatever you do with it, you turn it around and it goes around and then it falls and you get some letter. In this case, you get a hey, you get a halb. But whatever you get, you think about the dreidel and you make sure that the dreidel is something that you do not forget.
So how do we not forget? We not forget with a song, a very well-known song, which is actually part of both of our childhoods. The song is I Have a Little Dreidel. The song was written in 1927. It was originally written in Yiddish. It was published in English in 1950. And interestingly enough, it was included in a book of songs that Mort and I shared when we were young. And the book was published by the conservative movement. So this is very much a part, not only of our childhood, but probably the childhoods of many people in our generation.
And people who are looking.
It happens to also be, that's been translated into many languages, including Swedish. I'm going to sing it in English. I have a little dreidel. I made it out of clay. And when it's dry and ready, my dreidel I shall play. Oh, dreidel, 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 I made it out of clay. And when it's dry and ready, my dreidel I shall play. Verse 2. My dreidels always playful. It loves to dance and spin. And when it gets all tired, it drops and then I win. Together, oh, dreidel, dreidel, dreidel. It loves to dance and spin. And when it gets all tired, it drops and then I win. Happy Chanukah, everyone. Enjoy
Happy
the dreidel
Chanukah.
song.
Beautiful, Judy. Such a nice and funny song. And the same Sevivon can we sing also in Hebrew. So join me also. Sevivon sof 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 Chanukah uchak tov Chanukah uchak tov Sevivon sof 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 Chag simcha ulam nes gadol haya sham nes gadol haya sham Chanukah ulam Sevivon sof 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 Chanukah hu chag tov Chanukah hu chag tov Sevivon sof sof sof. And like this one, we have, of course, many other children's songs for Chanukah. So the next one is a beautiful song called My Candle, Ner Li. Ner li, ner li, ner li daki, Chanukah neri adli, Chanukah neri ayir, Chanukah shiri mashir, Chanukah neri ayir, Chanukah shiri mashir.
Thank you, Isidoro. Thank you very much. Our next guest is Solveig Freudenthal, and she is the chairperson of the Norrköping Synagogue Friendship Society. She's going to tell us a bit about the Norrköping Synagogue and the congregation. And then we have another surprise from Norrköping that Solveig will introduce. Please, Solveig.
Thank you. Happy Chanukah from Norrköping. We are also very happy to be part of this program. And yeah, because here in Norrköping, we have the second oldest synagogue in Sweden. And to me, it's the most beautiful synagogue, of course, in Sweden. It's from 1858. You can see maybe a little bit on this booklets back kind there, which is from the synagogue. And in those days, in the middle of the 1800s, Norrköping was an important industrial and textiles town. So many Jews moved to Norrköping, especially they came from North Germany, and they took part in this textile industry. And even though Norrköping never became a big city in terms of the Jewish life there, but still it was one of the three cities where Jews were allowed to live from 1782 up to whenever that was abolished. But so the heydays were around in the middle of the 1800s, 1858, when the synagogue was built. And even then, they only had 99 members. But the contacts between Norrköping and the congregations in Gothenburg and in Stockholm were very lively. And often, soon, people began to move away to these bigger cities. So that made the number of Jews in Norrköping even smaller. After the Second World War, Norrköping experienced a renaissance when all the Holocaust survivors came with the bike buses, and they were very special and unfortunate times, but they started a new life, many of them in Norrköping. And also after 68, 69, when Jews had to leave Poland, some of them moved to Norrköping. So there's always been some kind of Jewish life around the synagogue in Norrköping since the middle of the 1800s. Today, they're not that, as Lisa already mentioned, not many Jews living in Norrköping, but we have this very active Norrköping Synagogue Friendship Society with approximately 150 members. And we celebrate as many Jewish holidays as we can. We also organize lectures and run Jewish topics and concerts, and we commemorate the 27th of January every year And at least twice, our cantor Isidora, who is here on the program, has come to us with an inter-religious choir, a youth choir, and they have been performing for us, and there's been fantastic times for us in Norrköping. And we always have, as I said, we're celebrating Jewish holidays, but especially Chanukah. We always had for at least 20 years now big Chanukah parties. Unfortunately, we cannot have that this year, as we all know, that's why we're here on Zoom. But we have had, and we always had a packed synagogue, and very often we had our chief rabbi, Emeritus Morton, who's also here today, leading our Chanukah celebrations in Norrköping. But we have also had klezmer music and homemade latkes and sufganiot. And after Isidoro, who will sing now a bit again, you will see our own latkes maker in Norrköping, Ingvild Pizarro, showing us how she makes the latkes. And she will also share the recipes with us at the end of the program. So I would just say, stay tuned, and Chag Sameach from Norrköping.
So thank you very much, Solveig. And we are going to soon conclude this special Chanukah program. As Solveig mentioned, we are on Zoom, but still we are together here, very many of us, which makes me at least very happy. Hopefully next year we'll be able to celebrate in person, maybe in Norrköping, in Stockholm, in Berlin, I don't know, but I hope to see most of you, at least, or all of you, next year in person. So Isidora is going to conclude this part of the program, but I want to say again that don't disappear. After Isidora's song, you will meet Ingvild and look at her latkes making. You will get the recipe. I suggest that you take a photo of the recipe, because it's, maybe you're not going to be able to get it at once. And so hopefully you will be able to taste those special Norrköping latkes. I also want to bring to your attention that after this program, if you want to listen to klezmer music, there is a very nice klezmer concert from Stallet in Stockholm with Martin Rosengart and Miriam Oldenburg. The third person is Bobby Ringström. And this you will be able to connect to at stallet.st, not SE, but stallet.st. And I hope that you will enjoy that wonderful concert. So I want to say thank you to Morton and Judy, and to Solveig, and to Klas, and to Isidoro, and to Ingvild, and to Lisa Narrowe, and all of you who've been putting this program together. I want to thank Yehudis Kultur Israel's great staff team who's been working this evening, Gulnila Lefebure and Martin Eichwerter especially, but many others. I do want to thank our audience for watching, for being with us on this Chanukah evening on the 15th of December 2020. I wish you all Chanukah Sameach, happy holidays, and a very happy New Year. Isidoro, it's yours.
Chanukah linda está aquí, 8 candelas para mí. Chanukah linda está aquí, 8 candelas para mí. Una candelica, 2 candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí. Muchos fiestas voy a hacer con alegrías y la miel. Muchas fiestas voy a hacer con alegrías y prazer. Una candelica, 2 candelicas, candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí. Los pastelicos voy a comer con almendricas y la miel. Los pastelicos voy a comer con almendricas y la miel. Una candelica, 2 candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí. Chanukah Sameach, and we go to the video with Ingvild now.
S-blade. Okay, let's go. After peeling all of the potatoes and put them in a bowl of water, you move on to chopping onions. So I'm going to use the food processor because it makes a good consistency. So I'm cutting them in half and then into quarters. And then I pop them in the food processor that has the S-blade. The potatoes, I'm going to use this for the best consistency. This is the potatoes. So you don't want it turning brown, so you need to be fast, move fast. Dump this in the water. This is going to remove all of the excessive starch that is found in the potatoes. So this is why we're doing this. So we're going to let this sit here to soak for a bit to remove the excess starch. And then we're going to whisk these with a fork. This is the speed. You don't want it to be too fine, so this is how you do it. This is also where you put your seasoning. So in here, for this amount of potatoes and onions, you're going to use about a teaspoon of salt and 1/3 of a teaspoon of pepper. After you've added the spices, you add the onions. So you see what consistency it is. So the important thing is to drain the potatoes. We're going to move on to those in a colander and then into cloth so that we can get all the excessive water out of the potatoes. Rinsing the potatoes, and as you can tell, they turn brown very fast. So I have a colander in here to make sure that they don't turn brown. Okay, here we need to act fast, move fast, as you can tell. So this is how you get the excessive water out, and then you pop it into a cloth. We're going to do that later. So this is how you do it. You try to press all of the excess water off. We'll use a bowl underneath so that it doesn't fall out. Tell they turn brown very fast, so I have a colander in here to make sure that they don't turn brown. Okay, here we need to act fast, move fast, as you can tell. So this is how you get the excessive water out, and then you pop it into a cloth. We're going to do that later. So this is how you do it. You try to press all of the excess water off. We'll use a bowl underneath so that it doesn't fall out. And as you can tell, there's still lots of water in here. You're going to give it a good squeeze, and we're going to pour it into the egg, onion, and spice mix. While we do this, Mika's going to turn on the stove so we can start frying. To use a spoon, and then this is going to be very hot, so this is when you sometimes say do not try this at home. So you pop it into these shapes. Free-handed latkes, so there's a lot of movement that's in your wrist. So, and it's going to be hot, it's going to be sizzling, so be careful. Obviously this is going to be very oily, so here you have a layer of paper towels, and here are the ones that we made free-handed. Here you have just regular applesauce, because some people like the applesauce. So in the horseradish and the cream, the sour cream, 2 pinches, and a pinch of pepper. You're ready to go.